Good morning, everyone. This is Cassie Stumo. I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. We will begin today's session with an introduction of EAC. Then we'll be diving into the 3 steps to bring augmented reality to field service. Near the end, our technical account manager, Todd Liebenow, will show us a short demo of the tools we can use to create, manage, and author AR content and what that might look like between 2 collaborative tools. Everyone should receive a recording after the session pending any technical difficulties. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat and we will answer them after the presentation. Okay, so for those of you who do not know who we are, I'll start off with a quick intro. EAC's mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We are not only a value-added reseller for PTC, but we are the #1 solutions provider for PTC in the country, which is something that EAC is very proud of. We have experts in 22 areas of product development and are located all over the US, with our headquarters in Burnsville, Minnesota. We offer our customers everything they need for product development, such as service lifecycle management software, which helps you create and manage service documentation, product data management software like Windchill, ThingWorx Navigate, and our customizable EAC productivity apps, which all help you manage internal product data. We implement the Internet of Things and augmented reality into business strategies to jumpstart initiatives around digital transformation and connecting all things in your company. We assist with design and engineering projects like FEA, simulation, reverse engineering, and proof of concepts for our customers. We offer webinars and PTC certified training courses for continuous learning as well. We're also a commercial reseller for Formlabs, offering the Form 2, which is an SLA desktop 3D printer that delivers high-resolution parts and prototypes for as low as $3,500. So please keep us in mind. We really have a variety of tools to help your organization save time and money throughout the product development process. And our job is to help you excel at what you already know how to do best. So when it comes to the 3 steps to bring AR to field service, we want to know, why are these steps important? You can start to organize the information that you already have within your company, filter out that material that is AR friendly and non-AR friendly, and keep the AR ready content available for use to publish. Ultimately, we're bringing AR to field service not only to help technicians work better and faster, but this will directly affect your customers. When you deliver prompt service, this increases customer success, keeps your company top of mind, and increases your chance to sell more due to your fast performance and trustworthy reputation. So let's quickly go over what AR is before we get started. Most of you recognize AR to mean augmented reality, which, yes, this is true, but there is also assisted reality. Assisted reality is more accessible and practical for field service technicians, mechanics, and other service professionals. It refers to any technology that allows a person to view a screen within his or her immediate field of vision, hands-free. It differs from augmented reality in the fact that this information on the screen is not overlaid onto a physical environment. So essentially both are referring to superimposing graphics onto your view of the world. We can think of this as converging the digital and physical worlds, which is the same messaging that PTC is always telling us, right? Bringing these 2 worlds together allows us to use technology to its fullest extent. For purposes throughout this presentation, when I say AR, I'm referring to both. Where is AR being used? Top 4 areas are service, manufacturing, sell and market, and design. What can you take from this pie visual? The fact that, yes, those 4 areas are the top high value use cases. But if you look at the numbers, operations and training come up quickly behind them. All of these areas are using AR in different ways, but also beneficial ways, which tells us that it's being used out there by top performing companies to gain traction, growth, and success in using technology to their advantage. And when we're talking about using AR for service, we're talking about the creation and delivery of service manuals, parts catalogs, and technical instructions. All of these assets show you how to do something. Turning these assets into an AR experience means repurposing the 3D models that you already have by taking that service information and putting it directly onto the product that that person is interacting with. We can do this with troubleshooting, remove and repair tasks, and parts identification. I'm not sure about you, but I hate reading manuals. I'm a visual learner. A lot of people learn much faster actually seeing the process done as opposed to reading about it. You can now look at these real parts and see how they relate to each other by watching an animation of how those parts come apart or an animation of how to assemble those parts. By doing this, you don't have to take yourself aside to read a manual. You can visually see this right in front of you directly on the products. There's also remote expertise where you can have a connection to the internet and have a subject matter expert over your shoulder, in essence, that can write on your display on whatever it is that you're looking at to make comments or tell you that this is the wrong part, etc. Now let's take a look at your current content. It doesn't matter if this content was created yesterday or if it's 30-year-old content. As long as this content is already digital, then you can leverage it. What types of information make sense to leverage? What types of information should we recreate? Those are both really good questions when you're trying to figure out how to identify service information that's suitable for AR. It's important to understand that if you have information that is a PDF or if it's on a web page, you can use it in assisted reality or augmented reality. You may need to rework that information into smaller pieces so that it makes sense in that fashion. You'll just have to look at the information to see what makes sense for what you're using it for. Now let's go back to the question of what types of information makes sense to leverage and what types of information should we recreate. You may have content that in the shorter term may just make more sense to use in assisted reality, where you apply a new style sheet to it and now it displays on an AR device in an easily consumable fashion. As long as you are able to use the content by seeing a visual on your device, it can be displaying a graphic or showing a parts list or seeing an animation of a step-by-step procedure. Or you can find out after you've finished troubleshooting if the piece of equipment is operational again. Make use of the information you already have and create new content only when needed. So after we identify the service information suitable for AR within our organization, we can then create animations and exploded states inside of a technical publication software like CreoIllustrate. When choosing a technical publication software, you should be looking for a tool that allows you to communicate accurate step-by-step instructions, provide quick and accurate parts identification, and create interactive and up-to-date illustrations for reuse. CreoIllustrate does all of these things to create assets like service procedures, parts catalogs, assembly instructions, training manuals, marketing materials, and operating instructions. So our first step was identifying our AR suitable service information. Then we convert our 3D CAD models and technical content into AR-friendly graphics. Then our third step is to expand our library of AR-ready service content. So once you have all of your content in visual graphics, including animations or exploded states, then we can start to publish and author those graphics as AR experiences. So content creators, technical writers, and product development engineers with no prior coding knowledge can create these experiences using Vuforia Studio. Experiences authored in Studio can be accessed from smart devices such as phones or tablets or wearable devices. So I'll just quickly go over a recap of what we just talked about, and then Todd will go into his demo. So as a recap, you're first going to identify all the information in your company that relates to service and categorize it as either AR-friendly or non-AR-friendly content. Then you'll convert your technical content into graphics with a technical publication software like CreoIllustrate, if you haven't done that already. And then once you have these graphics, you can then transform them into AR content with Vuforia Studio. So they are ready to then be used for AR on a smart device or an AR wearable like HoloLens. So I realize this is a lot of information. So you may be wondering, like, how do I actually get started with this augmented reality journey? It's a good question. You need to make the decision to actually pursue it. Don't let the fact that you may not have what you consider is not suitable for AR prevent you from actually exploring it. Everyone is on the same path, and everyone is just starting their AR journey. EAC has the expertise to help you along that journey, so don't hesitate to reach out and ask us questions. So now that we've gone over 3 steps you can take to bring AR to field service, I'm going to turn it over to Todd so he can give us a quick demonstration on PTC's AR suite, CreoIllustrate and Vuforia Studio.
So let's get started. So the first step in the process would be to sort of take a look at the information that we have that we want to consider for augmented or assisted reality content creation. So in this case, I've got Creo parametric up. I've got this front fork suspension for a mountain bike, and I might want to look at different things here as far as sharing this out and creating an augmented or assisted reality experience. So the general workflow here is that you're going to create your CAD information. Doesn't really matter whether it comes from Creo parametric or other CAD platforms, because we've got CreoIllustrate. That's sort of the bridge between the CAD content creation tools and the augmented or assisted reality. So I'm just showing this from Creo parametric as sort of the starting point. So that's how we'll proceed. So I'll go ahead and put that away. And now I've got CreoIllustrate. It's going to look very similar from the top, first glance as far as the user interface. What I've got right now is just the same model pulled open, and we're actually looking at a published representation of that front suspension. And I'm in the process of creating a new figure. So CreoIllustrate is a tool that can be used in a number of different ways. We'll show you some of the different options here and how you can take that information and create figures for illustrations, as well as sort of the augmented reality experience. So I'm just in the process of creating a new figure here, so go ahead and do a create and close, and I'll just go ahead and use that view. So this is where I would create different figures. So in this case, I've got this figure that I just created, and I've got lots of things I can do here as far as the orientation and explode states and animations and things like that. I've got a number of other figures that I've already created. You might see one down here in the lower corner. So let's take a look at some of the things types of things I can create with the Illustrate tool. So this might be something that would be useful for sort of the assisted reality. So in this case, I've got an exploded view with some callouts, and I've got a parts list. So this parts list information that could be set up, you know, in a text document or a PDF or something like that. So I could view that and sort of overlay that and see that information off to the side of maybe looking through a device like a Vuzix or something like that, where I've got some textual information that I want to sort of click on components and have them highlight and call them out and get specific information on that from there. Other types of figures that I've got, so again, Illustrate is sort of a tool used for creating images and things for consumption in technical publications, whether that's web-based or PDF or augmented reality or assisted reality. So I've got just different exploded views here just to kind of show how this would look, you know, for technical illustration. So lots of different options for formatting the display and bringing in libraries of components and you know, creating item lists and callouts and things like that. So here's another figure that I've got. So we're basically just sort of peeling apart the model and creating the different views of the illustrations that I need to kind of document the process. All right, so I've got that set up here, and then in another version, another option here, I've got, let me go ahead and close that version of Illustrate. I've got another model that's kind of in the background here, and that's actually going to show what I have here for we're going to get there in a minute. That actually is my Vuforia Studio. We'll come back to that in just a minute. I can create these animations, right? So in this case, if I created in this new figure that we've got, I might want to go back in and create sort of either an animation for a video, or if I want to show sequences and steps to kind of show somebody how to take this mountain bike suspension or the fork and the handlebars and kind of take it apart and show how that would work. I'll just show you a little bit on that, and then we'll show you how you can bring that into the Vuforia Studio so I can start to consume that in a augmented or assisted reality type experience. So we're going to go with the animation, and we'll just start to take this thing apart. I'm going to create a sequence in this case. And the sequence is different from an animation in that the sequence is going to proceed sort of stepwise, and it's going to wait for input from the user to say click a button or show the individual step, and then pause until the user is ready to go to the next step. Whereas an animation is your more traditional video, right? It's going to play from start to finish and show you all of the entire motion or the assembly or disassembly sequence for the object. We're going to do a sequence in this case and just show a few steps and then show you what you can do to consume that in the augmented reality world. So just as simple as picking on the components, we're going to go ahead and start to drag these things apart. Right, so I can go ahead and say, I want to move this thing around, but maybe I want to put an effect on there. Maybe I want to change a color for that to bring attention to that, that I'm going to go ahead and highlight that during the video. So go ahead and grab this component, we'll move it out. Maybe we'll move that out 300 millimeters. We want that to be negative 300 millimeters. And have it go the right way. And then I can put another effect on that. We'll pick on that component and say, hey, let's actually fade that out when we're done. So go ahead and fade that out. And then we'll do this on the other side. We'll do the same thing. We'll have that apply a color there to that. We'll actually flash that in. Let's pick the red color this time. And then we'll actually drag that out and we'll say, hey, let's have that go also in a negative 300 millimeters. And we'll do that same thing again. We'll actually do that, fade that back out again. So I'm creating this little animation. And if I want to sequence those things together, I can do that, right? So I'm just going to drag these little blocks here, so that those components are going to move kind of together simultaneously. We're going to move both the left and the right handlebars off simultaneously. So if we go back and play that back, we'll see what actually happens there. We flash them with the different colors and we'll move them out. So that's the first step. Then I'll go ahead and add another step, and maybe we want to take this handlebar grip, or the brake caliper assembly. We'll go ahead and move that. So I'm going to go back here to my bill of material or my structure for my assembly, and pick on the component here and say, this is the guy that I want to move right here. So I can move that whole entire assembly all at once, right? Same type of thing. We're going to go ahead and say we want to apply an effect to that. And in this case, we're going to pulse that, right? So we'll pulse that, and then we'll do this same sort of drag operation here, again with the 300 millimeters, move that out, and we'll apply that effect. So I think you get the idea there that I can kind of push and pull and rearrange my my assembly to show the different steps that are going to happen here. So go ahead and apply this last fade out to that. When I'm all done with that, right, so I'll take the different steps and kind of proceed through until I have my all the steps that I might want to perform in that sequence completed. Then what I'll do is I'm going to stop the recording, and then I can go back and save that out into a format that I can use in Vuforia Studio. The other thing that just to touch on this briefly, this is recording the components and those items that I'm moving around. I can also record the camera location. So if I want to fly around to a different portion of that, to that model, I can. I just change the camera location. That's less important when I'm in the augmented reality, because I can actually manipulate the model and kind of walk around it, or kind of use the finger swiping on my device to actually kind of rotate the model around. So it's less important when I'm in the augmented reality, but just know that I can, as I'm creating either animations or sequences, I can record the camera location to change that perspective on model. So again, to complete that process, I'm going to go ahead and publish that. Right, and what we'll do then is just say we're going to publish that information out as a viewable file, and that's what's going to be the input then into the Vuforia Studio application. So again, where did we start? We decided what we wanted to bring into the augmented reality experience from our CAD platform. In this case, we're using Creo Parametric, but this could just as easily be, say, SolidWorks or CATIA or any other CAD model. I can bring those items in via Creo Unite functionality, and then create my different sequences and steps here. I'll publish that information out, and then from there we'll go to the the Vuforia Studio application, which is here, and it's sort of a web-based environment where I can just sort of drag and drop components and create my experience using the Vuforia Studio tool. So this is what it looks like in Vuforia Studio. I've already gone ahead and done two things, and just to kind of explain what that is, I've dropped in a thing mark, right? So this is in a couple of different ways I can look at this model, is either using a thing mark, or I can have a spatial target. So those are things that I'm going to, say, point my phone or my iPad at to sort of start the experience. So that's this little thing mark down here at the bottom. It's sort of like a UPC code, PTC specific, that says this is the information that I want to get at with my device for the augmented reality experience. So when I publish this out, I would point my phone at that thing mark, and it's going to open up this experience and let me start to interact with that assisted or augmented reality world. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing I've done is I brought in this model. So that is what we just published from the CreoIllustrate. And I basically dragged and dropped it. Now over on the right-hand side, you can see that I've got options for scaling that or positioning that in the world, so I can start to rotate this thing around and see where this is located in space, right? So that there's really two components to what we're doing here in the Vuforia Studio. The first is the 3D model that we're going to build our experience around. And then the second piece is the 2D interface that I'm going to sort of overlay on the top of that, so the user has a way to interact with the model. We can give them buttons and controls and all kinds of widgets and sliders and whatnot to manipulate the model. And we do that sort of in the 2D overlay that sits on top of that 3D model. But this is the first step in the process. We would bring in our 3D model, kind of get it located and scaled appropriately so I can actually interact with that, and there's different options for that as far as placement. So up here at the top, I'll just touch on this briefly. This is a 3D view of what we have going on in our world right now. I have the 2D option, and I just put together a very simplistic user interface. There's all kinds of options here for how you want to interact with this model. You can have sliders and buttons and radio selection options and all kinds of different toggles. It's really giving you the ability to create a user experience and dynamically interact with the model. I just picked 3 different options here to totally reset the model, play through one step at a time, or play through all of the different steps that we created in that model. And so again, this is completely customizable. You can see you're developing this for a specific user interface or different device. So you pick for the device that you want to develop against, and you can kind of see that preview of what that user interface that you're building is going to look like on the device. So if we go back here to the 3D model, well, let's stay here right now, I guess. The way that this works is you're going to bind the functions of the buttons that you create in your interface back to the model. So in this case, I've got this button, and we've got different properties over here, so I can use different icons. I just grabbed a couple of the default ones here to kind of get this started. But what you do is you go and pick on the button, and that's going to give you the properties for that. And then down here in the events, here's where I actually connect that button push back to the model. So I simply drag and drop that. If I click this back over here on the model, right, so what that's going to do is it's going to pop open this target. And so all of those sequences and the items that we built in the CreoIllustrate tool are available here. And I just simply need to bind that button to an action in that model. So in this case, if I want to reset that, I would pick this reset button here, and it's going to totally reset that model back to the original state before I did anything in the sequence to pull the model apart. So I've gone ahead and I've already got those things bound together. So I've got this as my reset button. I've got the play single step and then the play all here. So that's how I connect that action in the model back to the user interface. So what does that look like? So a little tough for me to show this with an iPad or a phone on the web. So what I'm going to do is just simply do a preview here to give you an idea about what this is going to look like. So take just a second here. You can see this is in this case, it's an iPhone 6 interface. But if I want to look at a different sort of interface here, I can go ahead and pick this and show what this is going to look like in an iPad Pro. And we can flip the orientation to landscape. And then I can interact with this model, right? So I'm just kind of, this would be like if I'm using my fingers to kind of rotate the model or zoom in or zoom out using this interface. Again, it's a little tough for me to actually show that in a web presentation. So we'll just use the preview function here. So if we want to see what that looks like, we can go ahead and hit the play all steps. So I've got a few more steps that I put in this case, but to give you an idea about how you can actually interact with that model. So I can fly around this thing while it's doing its explosion and the disassembly sequence, kind of see things kind of going apart. And so I'm interacting with this model sort of as if it's sitting here in front of me. I can do this assembly or disassembly sequence and play things back and see what's going to happen when I take the model apart. So that's single stepping through progressing through all the different steps. If I want to reset that, we'll just go back here and hit the button and kind of reset back to the original starting point. So that's a really quick overview, kind of summarizing what we've done. Is we started off in our CAD model, we brought it into CreoIllustrate, we created some sequences, and we've kind of gone from there to create this augmented reality where I can look at this with my iPhone or a Vuforia, HoloLens is the word I'm looking for, with the goggles and kind of look and see what's happening with the model. So that's what I have. Questions or comments at this point, Cassie?
I'm not seeing any questions, but thank you, Todd, for that demo. Hopefully this presentation gives you an idea of how to start down your AR journey. If not, and you still have questions, please reach out. I do want to mention that there will be a short 4-question survey that will appear as soon as we shut down the webinar. Answering these questions really help us to deliver better content and presentations too, so we really appreciate your feedback. You can download a free trial of Vuforia Studio if you're at that 3rd step already and ready to author your AR assets. You can find upcoming webinars on eacpds.com/events, or if you'd like to see any previous webinars to date, you can go out to our webinar replay library to watch them. So those of you that are on the call will get a recording of our webinar shortly. And thank you again, everyone, for coming on today.